Eileen Grubba. Welcome back to Utalk.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me all right?
I can,
Great,
absolutely. How have you
great.
been? It's been like a minute or two or three since we've talked.
It has
Crazy
been.
busy, huh?
Yeah, well, it's just been interesting, crazy, busy, different kind of times, right?
Yep, absolutely. No, I mean, it's amazing. So, I don't know. I don't get all that. That's another conversation, these crazy
Yeah,
times and how things
it's
are. But
it's been busy in a very different way.
yes, that's a good
Yeah,
way to put it. Very good
yeah.
way to put it. Okay, now before we get started in talking about Disability Pride Month, and thank you for
Mhm.
making time to join us. I couldn't think of
Oh, you're
somebody
welcome.
better than you.
Ah,
But as I dig
thank you.
into your bio, I forgot about this one thing. You graduated from the FBI Citizens Academy, and you also spoke to your graduating class, but I think you spoke to at the FBI before they invited you to come and do this. Was that correct?
That's correct. I was asked to come and speak at one point, and after that, they asked me to join the Citizens Academy. And that's where you go through all the training and you even weapons and everything. You learn a lot about the inner workings of the FBI. And it's
Nice.
for community leaders so that we're equipped to handle crises when they happen in the communities around
Ah,
us. And it was a great adventure and it was a great challenge and I loved every minute of it. I met a lot of incredible people and amazing FBI agents, and I've since spoken even in their Washington field office and have made lifelong friends
that's
in
awesome.
that community. Yeah.
That is, and I got to tell you, I'm going to say this publicly. I am totally jealous. I would love to do that. I'm like
It
so
was
envious. It's like, how do
fun.
I do? Where do I sign up? I guess I'm not a community leader. Maybe that's the problem. But okay, now you mentioned weapons training. I
Yeah.
heard this, and I want to find out if this is true. When you were doing the weapons training on the range,
Uh-huh.
is it true that you made every shot with a submachine gun?
Yes. See, the FBI takes you down to their shooting range in Orange County when you're in the middle of this program, and you get to fire different weapons like the Tommy gun and and I don't like weapons. I'm just going to say that right out of the gate. I don't
Yeah.
like them. I don't have one. Um, and so they let you field them and shoot at targets and they train you how to use three different weapons. And so um, I said to them, okay, I'll shoot that weapon, but I'm not walking while carrying a loaded weapon. That's something I'm not going to do. So thankfully, I was like, I'll stand there and shoot it. But anyway, yeah, it's so one of the agents who is back from multiple tours in Afghanistan and a very accomplished agent was my instructor, Mike Gifford, and he handed me that submachine gun, and I did it. I still have a picture of it. I hit the bullseye every time, and he just looked at me and he was like, "What?" But you know what that's about? That's hand-eye coordination because, when you have a
Sure.
part of you that is not working well, other parts of you pick up function. And ever since I was a small child, even when I was in a wheelchair, I could throw a football, I could throw a baseball way better than any other little girl my age, but I couldn't run, so I figured the shooting targets thing was just another product of that hand-eye coordination
Hmm.
that is higher than normal because of the fact that it's compensating for what my legs won't do when my brain tells them to.
Well, I got to tell you, girl, I have a new respect for you. I've respected you, anyway. But now, I mean, that really is kind of, and a submachine gun. I mean, that's got a kick to it. That's
Crazy.
not, yeah, that's nuts. That's
The
absolutely nuts.
Tommy gun was so huge and heavy and everything, and I don't feel comfortable around those weapons, and I'm not a fan of weapons. I feel like the people trained to use them should use them and not the rest of us. But I did make a joke
Yeah.
about it at the graduation speech where I said, well, I learned I'm a sharpshooter. So if you ever need me in a crisis, just hand me a chair and then hand me the but I'm not carrying it. Yeah.
You're awesome.
So that was my FBI experience. I learned a lot about what to do in a crisis. And, we've got a lot of situations. We're constantly taking classes with the Citizens Academy still so that we'll know what to do in the case of an active shooter or in the case. And it also helped me understand what they're up against, because what they're up against is frightening. It's frightening.
Yeah.
They're being shot at all the time. They're dealing with people who are, often on drugs and shooting at them, and their lives are at stake. They're humans like the rest of us, and it's challenging. I don't think I would want to be in law enforcement these days, and I applaud anyone who has the courage to do it, because
I'm with you on that.
scary.
It's and making split-second decisions. It's
a life altering split second,
yes,
and it's
exactly.
Yeah,
No,
it's so frightening. It's almost they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. In whatever happens,
exactly.
It's interesting to see it from their perspective, because a lot of times we don't. We're outside of it, judging every move, and we don't realize what's actually going on the other side of the table.
No, we don't. I have a lifelong friend who's like a brother to me, who just retired early from law enforcement, and boy, the stories he's told me, the situations he's been in, and then having to deal with people in the public who don't understand what they're trying to do and what they're under. And, it's he said at one point
that they're under, and how often they're shot at, and how often they're dealing with life-threatening situations. It is very challenging, and I know it's a hot button topic, and there will be people listening who don't even like that we discussed it, but I mean, we should be able to discuss anything, right? We live in a world where we should be able to talk about everything, because how else do you get to an understanding of people and others and experiences we don't have? We have to talk about it, which is why we're talking today, because we're going to deal with experiences a lot of people don't have, and try to help people have a little bit more empathy, compassion, understanding for what a whole nother community lives with.
That's why we wanted you to have this conversation with us. I mean, we've already mentioned you are so gifted, you are so talented, you persevere, you have an incredible work ethic. I see some things on social media sometimes, I'm going, oh, she's pulling an all-nighter, and like multiple in a row. But this whole thing of Disability Pride Month is very close to you personally, close to your heart. You've already alluded to it, but let our audience know kind of the behind the scenes, the backstory, if you will have it.
It's so funny, because a story like my personal life story is something that when people get their hands on it, they want to hear it, and they want to talk about it in these podcasts and interviews and all that stuff. And when you live the life, you're like, oh, I got to tell that story again. But then you realize, the reason that you're sharing it is for the people who need to hear your perspective, and for the people who feel alone, and who feel like no one understands what they're going through. And a lot of times through my life, I would come bouncing into a room with a big old smile, and I've literally had people say to me, well, with that big old smile, I'm sure your whole life's been easy. And I'm like, no. Maybe I'm smiling because I was able to get in the room, or maybe I'm smiling because I'm still alive. But what I will tell you guys, and this is also here, we're going to hit another hot button topic, and one that is still very pressing in my life. And people actually literally in the last year hate me for it. I'm not kidding. The aggression has been immense. But here's the story. I was a happy, healthy, vibrant little child, and we went and got vaccines for school. And I got either a bad vaccine, or we still can't explain it exactly, but what ended up happening is whatever was in it went to my spine. My body went nuts and attacked it. They kind of call that Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is, your own immune system goes nuts, and it attacked my spine. I nearly died. I was paralyzed from the waist down. And, at first, my parents were told I wouldn't live. I was stuck not only in intensive care, but literally right in the nurse's station with all kinds of things coming out of
Oh,
me. I was
Eileen.
terrified. I was a little child. I was less than 5. And I remember the terror. Even when I'm telling you, I remember the terror of that child. And they kept sticking all these things in me and my spine and needles everywhere. And, you know,
Oh.
the paralysis, people didn't understand what was happening when it was happening. So my bladder almost burst. I did survive. They told my parents I would never walk again. A permanent spinal cord injury from whatever they happened that they couldn't understand at the time. And I ended up in a wheelchair. I was paralyzed from the waist down. And they expected that to be that for me, for my life. But I was so young and not understanding that I really fought hard to try to stand all the time. Every time someone wasn't looking, I'd be sliding out of my bed trying to make my legs hold me because I didn't understand. And all I knew was that everyone was unhappy and my mom was crying all the time and there was stress all around me and it was my fault, and I just wanted to fix it, and so I kept trying and falling and trying and falling. And at one point, I finally got to where I could stand by the side of my bed and little by little, learned how to stand and take a few steps. And I had a walker. And, then, as I got past the worst part of it, I still have a spinal cord injury. I still have a lot of the challenges spinal cord injury people have, at the time, they weren't sure if it was the oral polio vaccine or it was the other ones, but eventually, through the years of misdiagnosis, we learned that it was from the other ones and not the polio and Guillain-Barré syndrome. So obviously, in this last year of insanity and rage over vaccines, I've had to take a lot of abuse from people. And the interesting thing is logic. Logic says that if there are people who cannot be vaccinated, they are in the disabled community. Doesn't mean everyone. There are a lot of people in the disabled community who need vaccines. I get it. But the ones who can't are also in this community, and we have to have some empathy and some compassion for what they're going through and not just treat them like a leper or a reject or something and keep them out of everything all over again because, I advocate for a lot of big groups, and I'm on the national committee for the Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, Performers with Disabilities nationwide, and there are quite a lot of us that can't have that vaccine, and guess what? They've all kept us out of work. And, a lot of people have been quite uncaring and cruel about it, and I haven't really spoken up about this because it's been so horrible to have to bring back all that childhood trauma and and people making me defend my position on it. And I'm like, hey, look, I have some of the top doctors in the world. Last year, they said, no way. The risk is way too high for me. And what am I supposed to do about that? It's like you're putting a loaded gun to my head and you're asking me to pull the trigger and take the consequences. And I'm not up for it again. It's been a lifelong battle. I've had surgeries all the way up until 2017 to rebuild my ankles and feet. And I'm exhausted. I ended up, because of all these, the pain, the surgeries, the things I've had to deal with, that all were caused by vaccines. So I ask people to please be compassionate and realize that this is a medical decision, nothing else. It's medical. And people should mind their own business and take care of their own selves. And if they feel they need to be vaccinated daily, go do it. Do whatever makes you feel safe. I'll drive you there, but leave me alone and my life journey. Don't put my life on the line because you're afraid of your situation. Everybody needs to take care of their own medical situation. And I see a few people coming on here, Donna Russo and a few others who have been amazingly supportive to me through this time because it's been rather challenging. And Sharon Shane and a few others, thanks for being here. Because they know what I've been up against, but this industry has known my story for many, many years. It didn't just come up this year. They've used my story for many years to open up our industry to include people who are living with medical challenges and disabilities, and to try to get people to have a little bit of patience, empathy, compassion, open-mindedness, and realize that literally everyone has something that's different about them than the person standing
Absolutely.
next to them, than every sibling they have, than everyone around them. Everyone's different. That's just the bottom line. And thank God we're all different. It makes life
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
And,
can't we
you know,
celebrate that, you know?
oh, heck yeah. I wrote an
Yes.
article a few years ago, not a few years ago, in the middle of the pandemic. I wrote an article called Bring in the Game Changers, and it went out to 130 countries on Strive Magazine. You can still find it online, called Bring in the Game Changers. Because my perspective, I'm open to all people and all of their experiences. And I do feel like, you know what, whoever you are, whatever you are, however you are, wherever you live, whatever you believe, however you move, whoever you are, at whatever age, whatever type, you're a human being to me. And if you want me to accept you for who you are, exactly as you are, whatever you are, whoever you are, then you have to accept me for who I am, exactly as I am, however I am. And if you don't like the way I move or walk, I now have a limp. I think that's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
don't think it's such a bad thing. I climb mountains. I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt, but I do it regularly. You can ask my friends. I force them to go with me sometimes.
I've
And
seen the pictures on social going, yes, Eileen.
constantly doing whatever I can to just keep moving,
Oh,
because I
yeah.
think
It's
it's so
so cool.
important. So, I do absolutely the best I can with what I have. And I think everybody in life hopefully is trying to do the best they can with whatever they have. And we all just have to, you know, love each other and accept each other exactly as we are, and hope that we have people around us who love us and accept us exactly as we are. And if we don't, we got to change the people around us. It's as
For
simple as
sure.
that.
It's
We
it's
need to
that's
be surrounded by people who love us and accept us unconditionally, all of us. I don't
yes,
think people with
yes.
disabilities are any different than anybody else,
No,
except
I
for
was gonna
that
say
we
that.
might move differently, or we need different medical support, or there are different uh everybody has something different. You might wear a size 12 shoe and I might wear an 8, but hey, we still wear shoes, you know
No,
um
abs-
and for those who don't wear shoes, that's okay too. Wear
yeah,
whatever you want.
yeah,
I don't, I try not to think of anybody and judge them on a surface thing, because I know it's all down to the human being. And I will tell you about my Game Changers article that during the pandemic, I noticed something that I've noticed throughout my life, but it really became very clear during the pandemic. There were a lot of people in panic and fear, and I understand that. It was the
yeah,
first real big scare for a lot of people. However,
definitely.
I started hearing what they were most upset about. And what they were most upset about is fear they were going to get sick, fear they weren't going to have the medical care they need,
Hmm.
fear they couldn't go to work, couldn't make money, couldn't pay their bills, couldn't go anywhere, weren't welcome to go anywhere. All of that fear, I had to start saying to people, oh, you didn't like that? Because you expect us, I'm saying you as a culture, society, expect us with disabilities to accept that every day of our lives. So if you don't like the way it feels, start thinking about how we need to change society to not make disabled people live in poverty, fear of not getting the medical care they need. I have a few disabled friends right now who are living with food insecurity because the state of California, that has so much money in reserve, doesn't give them enough to live off of if they're on disability. And yet, if they have a survival job, they lose their disability benefits, and there goes their medical care.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't afford to drive to their survival jobs because they drive, vans or that accommodate wheelchairs, or
Sure.
they have to. One of my friends is weighing in right now, Don Grabowski, who they have to hire a Lyft or an Uber, and that gets very expensive, and they can't afford to survive. And yet we keep hearing on the news that the state of California has this billions of surplus. It's like, well, why don't we take care of the people who need that the most? Why are we
Thank you.
penalizing them? by making them live off of $900 a month. Do you know anyone who can live off of that in the state of California? I don't. You can't. It's
No,
impossible. So
no.
I want society to think about what they just went through and how they felt during this pandemic and ask if they would like to live like that off of $900 for the rest of their lives. And if the answer is no, then let's start changing things and let's start treating people who have more challenges than us, who do deserve to actually get disability benefits and be able to still have survival jobs or go after being an artist or an actor or a musician and not have to worry about losing their benefits. You know, these are a lot of hot button topics. I realize that. And, you know, we always get in trouble when we speak up, but I just don't care anymore. I want to see everybody treated equally.
Thank
I
you.
want to see a system that feeds the people who actually need to be fed instead of the people
Yes.
who are hiding their income and don't want to pay taxes. I don't worry. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about my friend who says he will feed his dog before he feeds himself when food gets that tight. And I'm like, that is breaking my heart. And that has to stop. And we have to fix the system. And so this is why I care about this month and the messages we send out in this time, because we have a lot of people out there who are incredible human beings, who've been through incredible battles, who have incredible endurance, strength, courage, resilience, brilliance, and they've seen life from a different perspective than a lot of other people. And therefore, they have unique stories. They have unique passion, fire. They have so much to offer this world. And that's why I wrote the article about bringing the game changers. Why do we leave the people who are the best at survival on the sidelines? That's a question I have to ask. You know, we all have to learn how to survive. If we didn't learn anything in the last 2 years, that's what we learned. Survival is a skill. Let's figure it out. Well, let's talk to the experts. I would say I'm a survival expert. If I was ever in really big trouble or stuck, you know, in a really bad situation or in the wilderness somewhere facing grizzly bears, I would want someone like me by my side because I'm going to find my way out of there. It's what
And
I
I know
do.
you will. I know you will. You've got so much perseverance and just gumption to, you know, I love that you're bringing this up because I was hoping this is where our conversation would go. You know, the whole thing of acceptance. Why can't we just accept one another?
Why
And
can't
accept
we?
one another? You know, I mean, it's there's and why can't we listen to each other?
Yeah.
You know, we don't
Real
listen. We don't know.
conversations.
Exactly. You know, I mean, it's interesting. I was invited to a thing in our community for high school students, and it was an open mic advocacy night, and they could express. The idea was to express their concerns, what what concerns them about the world, you know, blah 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 blah. And they could sing, or they could, you know, do whatever. And every single one of them came back, you know, time after time after time saying adults don't listen to us. But adults don't listen to themselves either. They don't listen to other adults. So accepting and listening, because there's so many fascinating things we could learn from one another. And like you know, you're such a survivor. You could teach me things. You could teach somebody else if they would just listen and they would celebrate people with disabilities. And the Game Changer article, by the way, was great. Enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let's turn the corner just a bit.